Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 12th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. My name is Shelley Bueller, and I have the pleasure of serving as chair of the commission, alongside Commissioner Kevin Cook and Commissioner Bob Archer.
Good morning.
Commissioners. Madam Clerk, the first item, please.
First item today is item 3, consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I would move that we remove item 12 and renumber it as being G3.
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. And on the remainder of the consent agenda?
I would remove to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Okay. There's a motion to approve the remainder, items 1 through 11.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Madam Chair, this morning we have two sets of vouchers. The first one is dated August the 7th of 2013 in the amount of $762,910.63. The second is dated August 9th, 2013 in the amount of $348,661.42. And I do have a question for the chair on the August 9th vouchers. Under District Court, I am shown receiving the princely sum of $42.40 for jury duty.
I see.
And I plan to turn that over to the county clerk, of course. I don't plan to keep it, but I wanted to know, should I abstain from voting on the vouchers after?
I'm going to defer to the
County
county
Counselor.
counselor.
I would, yes.
Okay. Then
So
I'll
do you want to
abstain.
take the vouchers separate then? Or do you want to abstain from all the both sets of vouchers, or just the one that you're on?
Just the one that I'm on,
Okay,
I assume would be
okay.
the right
All
thing
right.
to do.
Let's,
I was alerted that my name was on the list
okay.
by Jane.
Let's deal with the August 7th vouchers first. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
So motion to approve
Second.
by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. And then the August 9th, I'll move to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
There's a second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 2-0-1. Commissioner Archer abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
Move approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item A3, consider approval of resolution number 2013-107, adopting the Shawnee County wireless communication device policy. And Commissioners, this is, I had a recent meeting with our property insurance, part of our property insurance crew, and they said that we really needed to get a better hold of what our terminology was on our cellular phone, our cell phone. And they said wireless communication device is a universal term. That is all that, they just in the various places in the resolution, and this is a standing resolution, has been since 2011. So I just ask that you do it just to get the terminology updated.
It has been reviewed by the county counselor's office.
Yes, they're
as
the
well.
ones that prepared it.
That's what I thought.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So, motion by Commissioner Archer, question?
I do have a question. Madam Clerk, if we name this the wireless communications device, technically a radio that a law enforcement officer would use is a wireless communications device. Are we indicating that our law enforcement officers can't use their radio while they're driving?
No. No, I believe there was an
It's-
exemption
there's an
for that.
Yeah, and there was,
I don't,
I
is,
thought it was
is the exemption in here?
Look into
Commissioner,
it.
it's in there, yes.
yeah, I thought there was language to that effect.
Law enforcement, okay.
Excluding emergency situations.
All right. Then that's, I had missed that one line, so
I'm gonna say aye.
then I second.
Okay. So second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor of the motion? Anyone wanting to speak on this item? I'm gonna check to make sure. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item A4, consider resolution number 2013-108, authorizing the county clerk to cancel and reissue a check. And this, Commissioner, is the individual lost the check. They apparently do some sewing for the sheriff's office. I'm sure it had to do with patches, some such, but check was lost and she paid the fee. We checked, it has not been cashed, so we just ask that it be reissued.
Motion to reissue check.
So motion to reissue the check
I'll
by
second.
Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Item B, planning, number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2013-109, amending resolution number 2006-10, establishing a conditional use permit for a sand and gravel extraction operation. Changes the limitation governing truck trips on Northwest Valencia Road from a daily maximum to an annual maximum.
Madam Chair, before we begin, even with Mr. Beagle's presentation, which I know he have a fine demonstration, given the need for us to tackle and address our budget and the large amount of people that are present, the need for taking this really with further detail, I would move to defer any action on this item for 3 weeks.
There's a motion by Commissioner Cook to defer for 3 weeks. Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay, that motion dies for lack of a second. Go ahead and continue. Barry, when you're ready.
Barry Beagle, Shawnee County Planning Department. What I'm going to do is attempt to give you a brief overview of the Kansas Sand proposal as it exists today, or the conditional use permit, and then leading into what is specifically requested by Kansas Sand, and then the recommendation of the Planning Commission. By way of background, or what they are seeking to do, Kansas Sand is, number 1, currently authorized to operating off-river sand and gravel extraction operation on a 330-acre parcel located on the south side of the Kansas River at the northern terminus of Valencia Road. And this aerial photograph displays the outline of the property for which they are granted conditional use permit authorization. Kansas Sand seeks to amend their conditional use permit regarding the limitation on daily truck trips. By way of background, on January 9th, 2006, the County Commission adopted Resolution 2006-10, authorizing a conditional use permit to establish an off-river sand extraction operation on a 282-acre parcel, which is, this represents the original boundaries as originally authorized. On March 13th, the County Commission adopted Resolution number 2009-39, or 2008-39, amending paragraph 14 of the conditional use permit resolution, authorizing Kansas Sand to transport sand and gravel material to any point from the I-70 Valencia Road intersection. That decision was challenged in district court, and the district court indicated that this amendment process would have to go back through the entire conditional use permit approval process, essentially. Kansas Sand elected to, in response to that, to go through the amendment process, went through the Planning Commission, ultimately ended up before the County Commission, and then on March 9th, 2009, the County Commission adopted 2009-19, implementing what they were seeking to accomplish, which was to allow Kansas Sand to transport material anywhere from the I-70 Valencia Road intersection. And then this represents the haul route between the drive entrance up on Valencia Road and the interchange at I-70 Valencia. So they cannot deviate from Valencia Road as they're transporting sand and gravel material. The only point of deviation is then at the I-70 interchange, where then they can distribute sand and gravel material to any point within Shawnee County or beyond. The next amendment was a minor amendment approved on April 21st, 2009 to attach a cyclone feeder to the existing sand processing plant. It did not change operations in any form, just was a different manner by which to divert silt and water material. That was followed on with CU 1207 which on October 8th, 2012, the County Commission adopted Resolution 2012-109, authorizing a 50-acre expansion to the existing sand and gravel operation. That was followed by a site plan amendment that combined the 50-acre tract with the original 282-acre tract, creating what is now recognized as the 330-acre tract. And so then this shows the location of the 50-acre expansion on the east end of the property. So, Kansas Sand at this point is seeking to amend paragraph number 8 of the conditional use permit as amended with regard to the restriction on the number of daily truck trips. Paragraph number 8 states the sand and gravel extraction operation shall be restricted to no more than 35 vehicle trips per day. A vehicle trip shall consist of a trip to the property by an empty sand hauling truck and a trip away from the property by a loaded sand hauling truck. A vehicle trip shall not consist of a trip made by service vehicles to and from the property. So currently there is a 35 truck trip per day restriction concerning the existing operation. Paragraph 10 of the conditional use permit indicates that sand and gravel extraction operations, including hauling of sand and gravel material, is restricted to the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, excluding weekends, and also excluding operations on Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. On an annual basis, Kansas Sand is permitted a maximum of 9,100 vehicle trips per year based on a maximum of 35 truck trips per day, 5 days a week. Based on the increased demand for sand, Kansas Sand is seeking greater flexibility in the current vehicle trips per day limitation to account for seasonal fluctuations in demand. Kansas Sand proposes to eliminate the current 35 truck trip per day limitation while maintaining what would be the equivalent annual limitation of 9,100 vehicle trips per year. Daily truck trips will continue to be restricted to the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. To assure compliance, Kansas Sand, in conjunction with this, would submit monthly reports documenting the number of truck trips that have occurred over the previous month so as to make sure that the annual trip limit would not be exceeded within the calendar year. No other terms and conditions of the existing conditional use permit are proposed to be changed. Okay, Planning Commission. This appeared before the Planning Commission for public hearing on July 8th, 2013. During the public hearing, there were 6 area residents who spoke in opposition to the proposed amendment. At the end of all discussion, Planning Commission recommended by a unanimous vote of 5-0 that the requested amendment be disapproved. Planning Commission, in considering this, offered the following findings. First, Kansas Sand has fulfilled its requirement to maintain Valencia Road as they are required, as was confirmed by the neighbors. Second, the sole reason the proposed amendment was recommended for denial was because of safety. Valencia Road is a 2-lane road without shoulders and a sharp curve with many drive entrances and school bus stops. Kansas Sand is currently permitted 35 loads per day, which constitutes 70 one-way truck trips per day on Valencia Road. Although they are sympathetic to Kansas Sand, it has restrictions put on them that their competitors do not in terms of truck trip limitations, road maintenance responsibilities, and shorter working hours. They agreed to these limitations to obtain the original conditional use permit in 2006. Planning Commission believes the county has worked with Kansas Sand in good faith by allowing them to add additional acreage to the CUP and to increase the maximum truck trips from 30 to 35. Bottom line, the Planning Commission felt the road was not safe to accommodate the additional truck traffic. So these are the findings in support of the Planning Commission's recommendation of disapproval. So with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Thank you, Barry. Are there questions from the commission at this time? Commissioner Cook?
Mr. Beagle, with the limitation of 9,100, and given the recommendation or the request of Kansas Sand and Gravel to have this as a banked number, we very well could have periods of time, ideally probably November through February, where there would be no truck traffic, correct?
Since it's based on seasonal demand, that would be a fair assumption, correct?
Was that taken into consideration by the Planning Commission?
It was. It was specifically discussed by them, and that's part of the Planning Commission minutes that are before you. It was felt that during the peak months, whereby there's a high demand for sand, that the increased traffic would prove to be too much for the two-lane roadway that exists in that area. It would create traffic safety issues.
When the original conditional use permit was extended to Kansas Sand and Gravel, part of it was that they would maintain Valencia Road.
Correct.
Has there been any consideration offered or thought of to extend to Kansas Sand and Gravel, to extend the road from a two-lane traffic way to additional lanes to eliminate the safety concerns?
The expansion of Valencia Road was never discussed during the course of the original conditional use permit nor subsequent that I'm aware of. The specific language of the original conditional use permit said that based upon the existing two-lane road configuration, that Kansas Sand would be responsible for any deterioration in the road system, the road base. And so that's what they have been doing since the conditional use permit has been approved, is to maintain and improve the existing roadway. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not aware of any discussion of expansion of the roadway to make it more efficient or however.
Would it eliminate the safety concern if Kansas Sand and Gravel offered to pay for the expansion of it from a two-lane traffic way to a three- or four-lane traffic way?
Well, that gets into engineering issues, and that I would have to defer to Tom Block, the Public Works Director, because not only are we dealing with straight line segments, but we're also dealing with extreme fluctuations in terrain and some curves. And so all of that would have to be taken into consideration with the redesign and widening of the street.
Thank you. I have no questions. Commissioner Archer?
Thank you.
At this time, we will open the public hearing, and we need to disclose ex parte communications. Commissioners, do you have any?
No.
None to my recollection.
Okay. I do have with Kevin and Angie Bittner and Nathan Rewertz, and so just for the record, please. At this time, those in favor of the resolution, please step forward and state your name, and please make your comments to the commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Hutton. I'm a lawyer here in town. I represent Kansas Sand and Concrete. And Madam Chairman, before I begin my comments, if I might approach, I've got just a small handout I'd like to present to the Commissioners.
Okay.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is this included in the packet that you're aware of, or not?
Yes. Is
It
it?
looks familiar,
Okay,
so.
well,
As a matter of fact, John, what I might do is,
there you go. You've got two copies.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
yeah, the other sheets are after that one.
All right. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this proposal with the County Commission this morning. Before I start, though, I'd like to introduce Dan Woodward, who is sitting in the back there, also Scott Toman. Dan Woodward is the General Manager and Vice President of Kansas Sand and Concrete. Scott Toman is the Quality Control Director. I know that time is valuable this morning, so I'm going to try not to repeat everything that Barry said, because Barry did, as usual, a very comprehensive job of explaining what's going on here. Bottom line is that the status quo provides my client 9,100 truck trips annually to remove sand from the sand pit for purposes of making concrete, making asphalt, any other road type use that you can think of. Basically, sand is a very base commodity for the construction industry. It's used by a wide range of different construction entities and industries. So it's very important to our economy. What we have found over the years is that 35 truck trips, while it is sufficient for the non-peak months, as you can see here, January, February, March, even April, we've got the average trips per working day. And you see in January 16.7, 22.5, it increases. So you get into the spring and summer months where your average trips per workday get very close to 35. And more telling is the number of maximum trips per month. So, in January, this is this year, there were 3 days out of that month where my client used all 35 of their trips. Whereas you get down to April, May, and June, you're getting in 15 and 16 days out of approximately 20 working days, where the 35 truck trip limit is being met. Now, the problem is that when we get into these high construction months, my client needs more flexibility to be able to, on certain days, run more sand out of that project than 35 truck trips will allow. Whether that number is 45, whether it's 50, whether it's 55, I don't know that I can stand here and tell you exactly what that number is. But the bottom line is that my client does need more truck trips to keep up with an expanding construction economy, and to make sure that they are competitive with their one competitor, which is Builder's Choice. This project has been successful. It's been around since 2006, and back in 2006, we went through all of these issues with many of the neighbors that are here today, and the same issues came up. Public safety was a big one. I am happy to report that since 2006, there have been no accidents. There have been no speeding citations. There have been no traffic citations whatsoever. Now, the neighbors will tell you, as I've heard them say this before the Planning Commission, that they have witnessed speeding. They have witnessed certain inappropriate driving behavior. But again, none of that has been reduced to a citation as far as I'm concerned. Now, am I going to stand here and say that our truckers are perfect? Absolutely not. But I'm going to say that they are educated about what the stakes are on Valencia Road. They do their best, and they focus very intently on following the rules of the road when they are on Valencia Road and at other times. Since 2006, my client has removed 1.2 million tons of sand in a safe and efficient manner. As part of the conditional use permit, Kansas Sand is responsible for maintenance of Valencia Road. Kansas Sand to this point has spent $888,000 on Valencia Road for full depth patching or the asphalt, an asphalt overlay, and crack filling. In fact, my client is planning to do some crack filling on Valencia Road during the month of September. The idea being, if you can get the cracks filled before the winter months, then you hopefully mitigate the freeze-thaw cycle, and you don't have to do as much patching later on. Let's talk a little bit about the competition. Builder's Choice Concrete several years ago obtained a conditional use permit from this body to operate off of the lower Silver Lake Road area. It's basically just immediately west of the Sunflower Soccer Complex. They do not have any limitations on the number of hauls, so theoretically they could take out 100 a day. They have no road maintenance responsibility. They can be open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., while we can be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they can sell to retail customers, which means that any of us in a room can take a pickup truck down there and ask to buy a ton of sand and have it loaded and to move it. Now, my client is not asking for any of these other restrictions to be modified. What we are asking for is the ability to meet our consumer demand, thus allowing us to compete on a level playing field with a competitor that does not have any of these restrictions at all. Already spent some time talking about the 2013 truck trip analysis, but really this is the reason for our request. I mean, what you can see, and I believe Commissioner Cook asked whether there would be a possibility of 0 truck trips during those off months. I don't think it would be fair to say that there would be 0 truck trips during those off months, but I think you can see from this chart that the need for sand and in fact the ability to extract sand during the very, very cold months is reduced. So even if we are allowed to just utilize our 9,100 trips as we deem appropriate, the probability is that we're not going to be extracting more sand in January and December and February just because it's going to be too darn cold. And in fact, the sand will freeze because it comes from, when it is extracted, it comes from a pit which is full of water. So when it'll freeze hard, and you can't even dig it out of the pile. So I mean, there's issues that come up in the winter that are even beyond economic issues that prevent production. But by the same token, those 35 trips per day that we're allowed in November, December, January, February, we can't use, okay? So those trips aren't being placed on the road. They're not being used by us. All we're asking for is the ability to use those trips from those off months in the months when we need them. Let's talk about a little bit about the legal standard for this county commission's review of this request. All zoning requests are analyzed under the court case known as Golden versus the City of Overland Park. That's reported at 224 Kansas, 591, back in 1978. Now in that case, it's a fairly famous or infamous court case. The court identified 8 factors for local governments to consider. And I'm going to go through those 8 factors quickly. First of all is character of the neighborhood. The area of development in this area is agricultural and is in a floodway. The sand production operation that is there now is the highest and best use for that property. Second, the zoning and use of properties nearby. Properties are either agricultural or rural residential, and of course the subject property is already in a conditional use permit and has been a compatible use for the last 7 years. Third, the suitability of the subject property for the uses to which it has been restricted. The property is presently in a conditional use permit, as we have mentioned, and is compatible for that use. Fourth, the extent to which the removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby properties. 7 years of experience shows that the project will not detrimentally affect nearby property. Changing the accounting for truck trips will not change that established fact. 5, the length and time the subject property has been vacant is zoned. It's zoned rural agricultural 1 and has been vacant except for agricultural use probably since the beginning of statehood. 6, the relative gain to the public, health, safety, and welfare by the destruction of the value to the landowner's property as compared to the hardships imposed on individual landowners. There's no evidence of any gain to the public by the destruction of Kansas Sand's rights to exploit this natural resource, which we all need. This project has worked well and has worked safely for the past 7 years. Changing the accounting of truck trips will not change that. 7, considerations of the recommendations of staff. Staff recommended that this amendment be passed. 8 has to do with the conformance with the master plan. I do not believe that Shawnee County presently has adopted a master plan for zoning, so that's not an issue. Bottom line, Commissioners, is that the golden factors weigh in favor of approval for this conditional use permit amendment. This change simply adds to the long-term viability of an ongoing project which will assure competitive pricing for sand that goes into the construction materials for the private sector as well as local governments, including Shawnee County. One point I want to make as it relates to the Planning Commission's disapproval of this request. They indicated that the sole reason for their disapproval was the safety issue. A couple of things I want to point out. First of all, there was no objective evidence brought before the Planning Commission that there was a safety issue with this project or with the haul road. Now, at the Planning Commission and at this meeting, I have no doubt you will hear anecdotal remarks from neighbors that there's all kinds of bad things going on with the trucks, and they don't like the trucks, and the trucks disturb their neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. In essence, it is the not in my backyard argument. It has been the argument that has been proposed since the beginning of this project. It has not changed. It will not change. Anytime we come before this body asking for any type of an amendment, it has been made. Okay? None of us in this room, including myself, is particularly excited about having a rock quarry, a sand pit, any kind of a project such as that that is in close vicinity to our residents. Unfortunately, in our modern society, which craves sand, craves rock, craves oil, craves all those things that add to our modern society, there are certain neighbors who will be in a closer proximity to these types of projects than others. Okay? I understand that, and we all should understand that. But I guess what I would ask this commission to do is to test what is being told to you as to whether or not what is being told to you is an objective fact that has been studied and has been determined on the basis of some sort of a standard, such as someone being given a speeding ticket because they were hit with a radar gun and they were going over the speed limit, or whether it's an anecdotal comment by a neighbor who said, I saw that truck and it looked like it was going pretty fast. Okay? I guess if that's the standard we're being held to, then we're all in trouble. Also, I'd like to talk a little bit about the volume on this road. Tom Block mentioned in the Planning Commission meeting that he believed this to be a low-volume road, which is 300 300 vehicle trips per day or less. And that's even with our trips on the road, okay? I want you to consider how many other roads in Shawnee County, or two-lane roads, have houses that empty out onto the two-lane road, and how many other roads in Shawnee County we have where the number of vehicle trips is well more, much more than 300 per day, into the thousands, okay? I submit to you that the safety concerns that these neighbors have is the same safety concern that neighbors might have on Indian Hills Road between 21st Street and 29th Street, for example. Only on Indian Hills Road, they're going to have about 3,000 vehicle trips per day as opposed to 300, okay? They don't happen to be as mobilized as these neighbors are. And there is not one entity that the people on Indian Hills Road can point to that they say is creating a number of truck trips. So that's the only difference. But in terms of safety, let's make sure we don't look at this just with a microscope on Valencia Road. We need to look at this in the context of Shawnee County as a whole, because there's a whole lot of county roads on Shawnee County that are similarly situated in terms of two-lane and a lot of houses with driveways that empty out onto that road. And I can get you some facts and figures on that later, but I'm just trying to give you another context through which maybe this might be viewed. Bottom line is, this is a good project. It has been a good project. This change that we're asking for is reasonable. The change is good for Shawnee County and good for Shawnee County's economy. Does anyone have any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Cook?
Mr. Hutton, is your client able to operate during the peak times, which I'm assuming would be March through October, November, and take as the maximum amount of the sand, the maximum amount of trips, and stockpile that at an alternate location?
No, they are not. They can stockpile about 2 weeks worth of sand, and that's about it. The one point I want to bring up, and your question is a good segue into that. It will be, and it has been virtually impossible to get 20, say there's 20 working days in a month, say you pick June. It has been virtually impossible to get 20 working days of 35 trips per day because of breakdowns in equipment, because of one trucker not being able to make the haul that particular day, because of a loader breaking down. I mean, what I'm saying is that there's always going to be circumstances where the maximum is not met for one reason or the other. And unfortunately, in terms of stockpiling, the only place that my client can stockpile is on their property at 531 Kansas, or I'm sorry, 531 Tyler. And they're pretty much maxed out there. They can't stockpile anymore.
If your client is denied this application or request, would they be interested in or amenable to speaking about the expansion of Valencia Road from a 2-lane to additional 3 or 4 lanes and partnering with the county or taking on that additional cost?
Well, I'm not going to foreclose the opportunity to discuss with the county any good option. I would say adding 4 lanes onto that road, I don't have any idea how expensive that would be, but it could be very, very expensive. And I guess my concern is that there is no objective evidence that that road is unsafe. And that's what, I'm going to keep going back to that because I believe it's true.
Are there other modes of transportation that your client can utilize, either rail or river, to haul the sand from their location to 531 Topeka?
No, there are not. And those were, I'm not going to say, well, river was not considered back in 2006. I'm not sure to what extent Kansas River is amenable to barge traffic. I don't think it is. I think it's too shallow. Rail was explored very heavily, and that is basically up to the Union Pacific Railroad, and it is not something that can be done cost effectively with the Union Pacific Railroad.
The last question I have is this an increased need for sand that your client has? And if so, is this an indication of any change in the market?
I believe that it is an increased need for sand on the basis of an expanding construction market in Shawnee County, which I think is a function of the economy getting better, albeit very slowly. I think it is getting better in Shawnee County in general.
Okay.
So, and you know, I guess one more point I want to bring up. We keep in mind we operate under an 8 to 5 hours of operation as we sit here today. We're not proposing that change. There's only so many trucks that can be loaded between 8 to 5. So, you know, if neighbors come up and say, well, they can do 100 trips a day if they want. Well, no, we can't because we don't have enough time during the day to load that many trips. You know, probably the maximum would be in the 50s. Is some daily cap appropriate? Maybe we can talk about that too. I mean, I don't know, but I guess the point is that the setup of the operation and the time limitations that are imposed on the operation are a natural limitation to the 100 trip a day argument that perhaps you might hear from the neighbors.
Commissioner Ritter?
So if, I just have one question. If we eliminated the limit of 35 per day, what are you saying would be your estimate of busy times? 50 or 60 per day?
Somewhere in that neighborhood. And that might be 1 day a week or 2 days a week. I mean, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, so, but what you would be talking about is a truck going by my house every 9 or 10 minutes, going down to every 5, 6, or 7 minutes, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Mr. Hutton, on the original conditional use permit, the location was chosen by your client, correct?
Correct?
And so it's, I seem to remember some discussion about scarcity of sand during those discussions, and correct me if that's not right.
Well, scarcity of sand that is in locations where it can be economically extracted over a long
On
period
river,
of time.
off river, correct?
Mhm.
And now we have competitors. I mean, your main reason
There-
for
there have
wanting
all-
this is
yes.
competitors, so.
Well, it's one reason. It's not the only reason. I
be
mean,
it-
I mentioned it in my argument, but I'm not gonna say that it's the only reason. I think we have customers that need more sand in general. Now, the concern on any business's standpoint is, look, if we can't get enough sand to these customers quickly enough, what is that gonna do to our relationship with that customer? Are they gonna go to our competitor? I don't know. I
Understand.
mean, it's the businessman's conundrum.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Anyone
thank you.
else in favor? Please come forward at this time. Barry, do you have something to add?
No, I was just gonna switch it back to the map.
Okay, thank you. Those opposed, please come up to the podium and state your name, and please make your comments to the commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Rewerts. I live at 10749 Northwest 4th Street, along with my wife Kathy and our 5 children, Sean, Daniel, Jonas, Ella, and Leah. We built our home in 2002 and love living in our neighborhood. With the exception of 80,000 pound semi-trucks passing within 150 foot of our home each weekday, our neighborhood is quiet and a peaceful one. I will try to be as brief as possible this morning, but this is a very large issue for our neighborhood, one that we deal with 5 days a week, 260 days a year. This morning I would like to take some time to give you a true and accurate history of the beginnings of the Kansas sand pit and the trials our neighborhood has to endure and continue to endure every day. Some of my points will be from as a father of my 5 children, and many will be from as an independent business owner and a person who has been involved in this process since Kansas Sand first requested permission to install the sand pit. There are 2 main points I want to make from the standpoint as a father. First is a typical conversation that I will have or my wife will have with our kids during the weekday, and that is, Dad, can we go up to the Bittners to go swim? Bittners live about 1,000 foot north of our house on Valencia Road. The only way to access their house is on Valencia Road. Unfortunately, and I never like to answer a question with a question, my answer back to them is, well, what time is it? And they say, Dad, it's 4:30. And I said, sorry guys, you cannot ride your bike on Valencia Road until after 5. For the last 6.5 years, from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, my kids, along with most of the other kids in the neighborhood, are captives in their own homes due to the semi-trucks traveling up and down Valencia Road. It is sad, but the reality is that as a responsible parent, I cannot put my kids on that road. Even though Mr. Woodward attempts to assure me that his drivers are the safest on that road, I cannot trust him with the welfare of my children. I wonder if Mr. Woodward or Mr. Hutton or the commissioners would allow their children to ride up and down that road to go visit their friends. My second point is that 6 years ago, there were very few teenagers that were allowed to drive in our neighborhood to and from school, activities, and jobs. In the next 2 years, many new licensed drivers will have to share the road with 80,000 pound semi-trucks along Valencia Road. Friends of teenagers will want to come visit their friends that live along Valencia Road as well. It is not uncommon to see the semi-truck drivers with one hand on the steering wheel and one hand holding a cell phone as they travel up and down Valencia Road. Mr. Woodward can make all the claims he wants to about the attentive nature of his drivers and their history along Valencia Road for the last few years. This is all well and good until it is not. And when something goes wrong, it will be too late. An example of this happened the morning of the Planning Commission meeting in Manhattan, Kansas, when a ready-mix truck that was 2 years old and had 21,000 miles on it, was well maintained, rolled over. A mechanical failure led to the rollover. Everything was well and good with that truck until it wasn't. The next item I would like to cover is what I believe is an incorrect picture that was painted at the Planning Commission meeting 6 weeks ago. And some of this information is in your packet. The Planning Commission was told that the reason the number of truck trips has been limited since the inception of the mining operation was due to the impact they would have on the road surface. This could not be farther from the truth. and it is truly sad that this was the focus of the presentation given to the commission. The truth is, during the initial application, there were two main issues that surfaced. One was the actual condition of the road surface, while the second was traffic safety issues along Northwest Valencia Road. The Board of County Commissioners addressed these issues separately with three conditions, one being they had to pay for the road, that covered the road surface, the time that they could haul, and the limitation of trucks covered the traffic safety issues. The traffic safety issue was the main focus of those protesting the issue of the permit. Instead of using my own words to prove that traffic safety was our main concern, I will quote the Shawnee County District Court Judge Terry Bullock's memorandum decision in case number 6-C200, which was a lawsuit filed by those living within 1,000 foot of the boundaries of the sand pit, asking the decision to allow the CUP to be overturned on the grounds that it wasn't reasonable. Judge Bullock wrote, as BCC notes, plaintiff's concerns focus mainly on the traffic safety along Valencia Road. On the same topic, I would like to read the following statement. In conclusion, although concerns for safety may have been the most heavily debated golden factor in this case, public safety was not the only factor that the board was required to consider in reaching this decision. The focus of that was that traffic safety was the driving golden factor on this. That was written by Rich Eckert and Jonathan Brazon in their reply brief to the court. I hope this puts to rest the initial message of the Planning Commission and ultimately the County Commission that our concerns as a neighborhood were simply about the road surface and that limiting the daily trips was in place for the purpose of protecting the road. Our concerns and protests are far beyond simply the replacement of asphalt, although we do deserve credit for holding Kansas Sand accountable for that issue as well. Our concerns are for those who live and travel along Valencia Road. The daily truck trip limitation was put in place for one reason and one reason only, to protect those who live in our area and have no choice but to use Valencia Road as a means that allows for us to live our lives. Now I want to shift my focus from a role as a father to giving you the facts and history of why we are here today. When I reviewed the request before you today, I was humored by it that Mr. Woodward is bringing up competition now, and that the focus seems to be that there has been a 9,100 annual truck trip limitation put in place. He wants you to believe that through 17 hours of testimony, that 6 years ago the entire conversation was about the annual truck trips that he could haul. The status quo is what I believe that it has been called. The file we maintain regarding this issue takes up 2 banker boxes. In those boxes are the files we assembled during the initial CUP request and subsequent hearing. It contains road study, traffic studies, testimony from those who oppose the CUP and those who were in favor of its approval. There are legal briefs, hydrology studies, testimony from experts, and legal decisions from the courts. I have reviewed this material many times and have been involved in this process since day one, and I ask each member of this commission if they are so inclined to find one time where an annual truck trip limitation was ever mentioned. I asked Mr. Woodward to stand up this morning and tell you on the record that the annual truck trip limitation was the limitation that was discussed 6 years ago, and the Shawnee County Commissioners actually intended for an annual limitation. The truth is that the 9,100 limitation that Mr. Woodward claims is the focus of the CUP is an annual one. That is not true. Mr. Woodward wants you to believe that by approving the removal of the daily limitations, you are not really altering the intention of the Shawnee County Commissioners who listened intently to testimony, reviewed expert witnesses, and weighed how to find a balance that protected the neighborhood but allowed for sand to be harvested for the use of the residents in Shawnee County. Now I want to move on to the statement which Kansas says that they had a capital improvement of $888,000 in Valencia Road, and that they are somehow entitled to recouping that cost by lifting the daily truck limitation. This is where I believe the commission needs a bit of history so they understand why Kansas Sand was required to pay to fix the road. Kansas Sand did not willingly pay $888,000 on road patching, crack sealing, and asphalt overlay on Valencia Road. The overlay was not part of the initial CUP. What was part of the CUP was that if they did any damage to Valencia Road, they were responsible to fix it. They paid to fix Valencia Road after they had destroyed it. In the meeting at Bartlett and West Building at Topeka, before the initial Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Woodward gave me an original copy of the road study that he planned to submit to the Planning Commission and then the County Commissioners. After reviewing the study, it became apparent to me that there were some gross misrepresentations in the study and its recommendations. The report, in essence, says about the road surface that the annual maintenance schedule that Shawnee County has for Northwest Valencia Road is sufficient to support the additional truck traffic. That ended up not being true. The Valencia the Valencia Neighborhood Association hired an engineering firm in Manhattan to assist us in the interpretation of the report and provide a truthful analysis of what was going to occur to the road surface on the road. Civil engineer Ian Reiki of Schwab Eaton submitted the study to the Planning Commission and the County Commission that boiled down to the simple facts and contrary to what Mr. Woodward had submitted to them. Valencia Road was not going to be able to handle the additional weight and frequency of the semi-trucks. Taking this information, the County Commission required that Kansas Sand agree that if the road started to deteriorate, they would be responsible for its repairs. Commissioner Cook, I'm going to go and maybe amend a comment or answer your question because I have this in our file, and Shawnee County probably somewhere does as well. Once the road started to deteriorate, Shawnee County requested that a third party do an additional pavement analysis. That was done by Cook, Flat, and Strobel. In that, they came up with two options. Their first option was to realign Valencia Road and widen it. Option two was to patch Valencia Road and then overlay it. So Kansas Sand has been given that choice in the past. That was option one. They chose option two, which was an overlay. So the road realignment and widening has been mentioned to them. The estimated cost, I think they balked at what that would be historically. So that covers the road, I think, side of it sufficiently. Included in the initial CUP request was a traffic study and road surface study. The safety issues focused around sight distances and stopping distances. After reviewing the traffic study, the Shawnee County Commission had Public Works alter various speed limits in problem areas. Although an attempt was made, it was impossible to lower the speed limit in one curve that would allow for proper sight distance and stopping distances, so Public Works installed a yellow curve sign with a recommended speed. This is an anecdote. This isn't the speculation that Mr. Hutton says that we all have. This is an actual sight stopping distance where the speed limit is not low enough. It has to be below 20 miles an hour to allow for semi-trucks to stop in a safe manner. Legal speed limits in Kansas are posted by a rectangular sign with a white background, black lettering, and a black border. The speed limit in this curve does not meet proper engineering and design standards. Recommended speed limits are not an enforceable offense. Kansas Sand drivers are under no legal requirement to drive below the actual speed limit, which is 30 miles an hour. Anyone in our neighborhood can call the Shawnee County Sheriff, but no citations would or could be issued. Mr. Hutton has brought forth that the arguments I mentioned today are the same ones brought forth during the initial application. He is accurate in that statement. The reason he is accurate is that nothing has changed with the road alignment. The blind curves, the people who live along Valencia Road, and the conflict created with 80,000-pound semi-trucks still exists in the same form it did 6 years ago. There will always be traffic safety concerns along Valencia Road until the road is brought up to current AASHTO and Shawnee County engineering standards. Those concerns and hazards will always exist. Now, Mr. Hutton wants to give 100% of the credit to the drivers who haul for Kansas Sand for no accidents and no citations. But like most complex issues, applying critical thinking could allow for an alternative theory to be considered. I propose it is the neighborhood altering our way of lives, combined with the restrictions placed on the number of trips by Shawnee County, that has prevented any tragic occurrences. Now that you have an accurate history, I want to shift to an area that unfortunately I find to be ridiculous. It's humorous that it's even being mentioned in this document, and the quote is that local competition has become an important factor. Again, Mr. Woodward has failed to provide any context or history of the original process. 6 years ago, Mr. Woodward stood before this commission constantly using the word monopoly and the reason why the CUP should be approved. Jobs would be lost, Kansas Sand would be subject to pricing whims of the sole sand production company in Shawnee County. Now he is using competition as a reason to lift the daily truck limitations. Mr. Woodward told everyone that would listen that if the sand pit was not approved, prices of sand would skyrocket, and the Meyer brothers would set the price of sand to a point that construction projects would increase exponentially in cost, and all residents of Shawnee County would suffer. And now today, the same people are telling you that competition is so tough in the sand production business that they need more help. Builder's Choice has been granted a permit to produce sand with few limitations. Absolute fact. And what you have to do is ask yourself, why are there few limitations on that sand production operation and so many on this production operation? Perhaps it is because Builder's Choice chose a more suitable location to put their sand production facility. The haul road is straight and has access to major infrastructure. There are no sightline limitations on the haul road. It is straight and flat. There are also a few residences along the haul route. As you can see in these two satellite photos, the sand pit for Builder's Choice is here. This is the haul route to Highway 75. There are 6 residences along that road. The residence right here was purchased by Builder's Choice and is now rented. So there's 6 residences along that road. Versus from Kansas Sands Pit right here, these are all the residences that have no choice but to access Valencia Road. Each red circle represents a home where residents live and must access Valencia Road. Now, Kansas Sand has provided a list of homes that have different frontage and access to Valencia Road, as well as a list of homes that are suspected of using Northwest Valencia Road. I believe this list is in your packet. Although this is what appears to be a comprehensive list, it fails to illustrate that people who must access Valencia Road from frontage road, which are not listed down here and all the way up Docking, and there's another road down here south of the interstate that must also access Valencia Road to get to the interstate. Now, on this list, I would like to point out that the people listed as being suspected of using Northwest Valencia Road, starting with number 16 through number 28, live on dead-end roads and have no choice but to use Northwest Valencia Road as their only access to other roads. These neighbors should not be suspected of using Northwest Valencia Road. They should be classified as using Valencia Road. Since these proceedings are part of the public record, I would like to offer an addition to the suspected properties list. In an effort to make certain that the information provided to the commission is accurate, you should know that my residence has been omitted from this list. From this list to those who live on and around the haul route pursuant to Resolution 2009-19. I can only assume this was an oversight and it was accidental and that Mr. Hutton wouldn't object to me adding my address to the record. I guarantee the commissioners that I do in fact live on Northwest Valencia Road, and I have no choice but to utilize that road as well for access. Kansas Sand believes that these two production facilities are similar, then why does Builder's Choice not have to maintain the road it utilizes for a haul route? Common sense answer is it was built to handle the additional traffic. Shawnee County Public Works was made aware of the Builder's Choice sand pit application, and after the many renditions we went through on our application, I would assume that if they had concerns about the pavement on the road, that they would have asked for a pavement analysis to have been done. That was not asked for, or none that I could find in the file, and no limitations or conditions are required on that. At this point, I think it bears some credence that it be noted that Builder's Choice was offered the Valencia Road sand pit before Kansas Sand. They decided it would not be a wise business decision due to the alignment and condition of the road, along with a number of residences along the haul route provided. They knew that the road would always be an issue and one they felt that was not acceptable. Mr. Woodward wants you to believe that competition is hampering his ability, but the truth is it's his own decision that poses the largest obstacles. As Commissioner Bueller has mentioned, there are more sand pits in Shawnee County now than there was before. One that has not been mentioned is that Victory Sand has been granted a permit to dredge sand on the Kansas River. When we went through these proceedings almost 7 years ago, we were told unequivocally that there would never be a dredge put on the Kansas River again. Victory Sand was granted one, the first one that has been granted in 15 years. I also want to note that Kansas Sand and Concrete is not a locally owned company. It is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Monarch Cement Company, which is a publicly traded company. Any profits produced by Kansas Sand and Concrete are ultimately those of the Monarch Cement Company. In your packets, Mr. Hutton had made reference that on more than one occasion that Kansas Sand has been a good neighbor. And I want to bring that up, that this alleged good behavior, that they somehow think they deserve to be allowed to have the really only enforceable condition that protects our neighborhood removed. If Kansas Sand believes they are good neighbors, then why are we here today arguing both sides of this issue? Good neighbors, in my experience, make attempts to resolve differences among themselves. Kansas Sand has not once in almost 7 years of production made one attempt to contact anyone from our neighborhood regarding the sand plant and any exceptions they may require from time to time. If Mr. Woodward believes that since there have been no incidents along Valencia Road that can be cited by local law enforcement authorities as being neighborly, then the bar for being a good neighbor has been lowered significantly. This good neighbor strategy has been one that Kansas Sand has employed from day one. Today is simply the implementation of yet another phase in the overall plan started years ago. Once they got the nose of the camel in the tent, they knew they would continually chip away at the conditions until a commission finally agreed to lift the most important one, which is why we are here today. At the end of the day, the Board of County Commissioners voted to approve the CUP with numerous conditions. The most important being a limitation on the number of trips that could be hauled on Valencia Road each day, and not once was any other time frame mentioned but a daily limitation. Not an annual, not a monthly, not a weekly. It has always been a daily limitation, and it's because of traffic safety. By imposing a limitation, the Board of County Commissioners struck the necessary balance between the need for what they were told was a scarce commodity if the CUP was denied, and providing a safe and healthy environment for the people who have committed their time and treasure to living on and around Valencia Road. The board believed that this balance would provide Kansas Sand with what they requested, as well as the residents of Shawnee County, and also provided the necessary protection to the neighbors. They found a compromise that they believed benefited everyone involved. Today, Mr. Woodward is asking you to tip the scales in favor of Kansas Sand, as they will be the only party benefiting from lifting of the daily limitation. There is no shortage of sand in Shawnee County. At the Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Woodward was asked directly if he had lost any business due to the limitations, and his answer was no. There's no shortage of sand in the county, there never was, and the price of sand will not fall if this limitation is granted. The residents of the areas served by Valencia Road will be the ones who suffer, as Valencia Road will be turned into a major highway filled with 80,000-pound semi-trucks. In closing, the balance has been set between the need for sand and the protection of the neighbors. Kansas Sand is here today asking you to help them dig out from a series of bad business decisions and conditions that they publicly agreed to and have signed off on every time and have said we'll make it work. Mr. Woodward agreed willingly to each condition, and now he is asking you to undo the only protection safety mechanism provided to the families by a previous board of well-informed county commissioners who went to great lengths to strike the balance. Removing this balance for the sole purpose of bailing Mr. Woodward out of his series of unfortunate business decisions is one-sided, unreasonable, and most likely will end in tragedy. The families on and around Valencia Road have had to learn to live with 35 truck trips per day. Maybe it's time that Kansas Sand be required to do the same. I respectfully request the County Commission vote to not allow for the removal of the daily truck trip limitations, and I appreciate your time, and I apologize for my lengthy dissertation. Are there any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Kirk?
Ultimately, the decisions of the county commission, if we do not approve this request, or follow, rather, the recommendations of the planning commission, your neighborhood hasn't changed, correct?
Correct.
You still have the same concerns regarding the trucks,
Mm-hmm.
the same concerns regarding safety,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes up the majority of your statements to the commission is as
Correct.
to safety currently.
Correct.
So regardless of what the commission does, you're still going to have safety concerns in your neighborhood, correct?
The concerns will be increased because the number of truck trips will be increased. If no semi-trucks are on the road, there is a 0% chance that there will ever be an incident between those two.
But if the commission takes no action, you're still faced with the same concerns that you had yesterday.
Correct.
And that's, if your daughter asks to go down to the pool, you still have that same concern.
With the 35 truck trip limitation, yes.
Has the neighbors given any consideration to increasing this from a 35? At the Planning Commission, there was a discussion regarding increasing that from 35 per day to 55 per day or 45 per day, but leaving that number the same. Has the neighbors given any consideration as to that?
The neighbors haven't been contacted by Kansas Sand as that being an option. The only option that's before us today is to go from 35 to unlimited.
Within the hours of operation?
Correct.
And the 5 days a week?
Correct.
With a maximum of 9,100 per year?
Correct. And I'm suspicious that the 9,100 at some point in time will also be brought into question.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Questions? Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You want a copy? I have small copies of that, ma'am. if you guys want.
That would be fine. Thanks.
My name's Robert Welch, and I live at 10828 Northwest 13th Street, and I'll show you where that's at on this. It's approximately right there between the bottom curves and the top curve. Okay. When I come out of my driveway with the tractor or something sometimes, and them trucks are coming up the hill, and I can't see them coming around them curves, they will pass me on the double yellow line, and they will be in the opposite lane when they go around that top curve. And it's only by the grace of God that there hasn't been a serious accident up there. And that's all I'm going to say about the safety. The next is, I'm not very smart, and I don't have charts or nothing like that, but I will tell you this. There's only one reason for Kansas Sand wanting to increase the number of trucks, and that's to increase their profit. And you're putting the profit of Kansas Sand against the safety of these children and my neighbors and everybody that lives in that area. They cited their competition. They had the opportunity to put their plants over there, and they turned it down. They said the only place they could have it was at the bottom of Valencia Road next to the river. Now, and they agreed to all the stipulations. Now they want to change it. They're not the only sand company in Shawnee County. Shawnee County's needs can easily be met by their competition. All they want to do is increase their profit. If you double the number of trucks, you're asking for more accidents or whatever the words are. You know, it's unsafe. And if you double the number of trucks, any safety expert will tell you, if you double the amount of traffic, you're going to have an accident. That's common sense. They made a bad business decision, and now they think we ought to pay for it with our safety. When they could have built somewhere else, they turned it down. They agreed to all these stipulations because they said, oh, down by the river at the bottom of Valencia Road was the only place we can get the sand. And now they're citing their competition is getting their sand somewhere else. So what they're putting, when they want more trucks, they want to increase their profit. And they're increasing their profit against the safety of the neighborhood, the people that live there, and the children. And that's about all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Welch.
Okay, any
Questions?
questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Weeks. My husband Clayton and I I live at 1333 Northwest Valencia Road, again, near Welch's on the Blind Curve. We also own a rental house immediately to the east of our home. Both of these driveways are in the middle of this blind curve, as you can see on the picture. The bottom picture is absolutely the first view as they come around the corner. The second picture shows our green car backing into our driveway as though we were backing in with our camping trailer. We believe that is not a sufficient stopping distance for these trucks once they see this obstruction in the road. Research indicates about 250 to 300 feet needed to stop, factoring in a downhill slope plus the empty trucks, which because of lack of traction require a greater stopping distance. When my husband backs into our driveway with our camping trailer or a flatbed trailer hauling gravel or dirt, it is a slow process. Since the sand trucks have frequented our road, he requires that I get out of my side of the truck with the fear that these sand trucks will come down and not be able to stop in time to keep my side from crashing or causing severe injury or death to me. Propane is delivered to the house that's got the red truck in it. He again takes a while to get lined up, backed into the driveway. All of these problems and risks would be compounded if you allow more trucks more often. It just does not put the odds in our favor of keeping from having a tragic accident. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Hello, my name's Mike Matavosky. I live at 11025 Northwest 15th, which is right on the corner of 15th and Valencia, right before the train tracks. You know, I keep hearing about how safe, you know, these drivers are so good. I have a big deck on the side of my house. Any one of you, or even from the sand plant, can come anytime and sit there when the truckers know that the boss ain't around or the cop ain't down the street. You know, when they come out of the sand plant, they're heading south. They to go over the yellow line so they don't have to slow down at the train track. All of them, every single one of them, every day. And as far as speeding, you know, they're coming down the S curve when they hit my house, and it's not 100% of the time. You sit on my deck and tell me that truck's doing 30 miles an hour. And I know the truckers, I could look at them, it's like the white truck, the white semi-truck. He's the worst one. It only putting the cover halfway up in the sand. You got the old guy with the white hair and the light blue truck. He's the worst one that's coming. You can hear him downshifting gears through the S curve. So, you know, something maybe hasn't happened yet. And we have called the police in the beginning, and it's like, you can't do that every day. Hell, we had a robbery in our neighborhood. I called the police. It took them 45 minutes to get there last week. You think they're going to worry about the speeding truck? But this stuff is going on. And like I said, you get you out there on my deck any day of the week, all day long, whatever, you're all welcome to sit there and see that we're not lying. They haven't had a ticket and they haven't had an accident yet, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But you could see for yourself if you sit at my house.
Thank you, Mr. Matavosky. Any questions? Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Kevin Bittner. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard today. My wife, my oldest daughter Cameron, and I moved to 600 Northwest Valencia in 1998. Since then, our family has grown to 7 with my wife and 5 daughters. My children range in age from 7 to 18. It was just days after my I am also president of the Valencia Neighborhood Association. So I feel as though I even have a larger family with all the residents we have out in our neighborhood. And as you can see, we have a pretty active neighborhood. It was just days after my youngest daughter's birth when this whole process with Kansas Sand began. My daughter Alex was 4 days old when we were at the Planning Commission. We knew it was important. We knew we needed to be heard. We knew that with our family being a number of young children, that we needed to have our voice heard. At that Planning Commission, we knew it was important for everyone to hear about our community safety interest. After hearing the extended testimony, the Planning Commission voted 6-1 to recommend denial of the initial CUP. Some of the Planning Commissioner's comments included the following direct quotes. Chairman Kaup, it was just not a close call. The infrastructure just ain't there. The road is inherently dangerous. The operation would be a threat to public safety. Public safety is the most critical thing. These came from Planning Commission members who drove Valencia Road. not people who just listened to testimony, but these folks all went out and drove Valencia Road. The Valencia residential area is a neighborhood, not a commercial area with good, solid, well-designed road infrastructure. Mr. Hutton had stated that this site is similar to the sand extraction facility on Lower Silver Lake Road, but that statement is about as far from accurate as is possible. The fact is that the Lower Silver Lake facility has only 4 to 6 residences, as Mr. Rewerts has pointed out. It passes by Myers Landfill, Myers Pumpkin Patch Business, a concrete fabrication business, a repair shop with over a dozen vehicles out in the yard out there. It has many other similar businesses along that 2-mile stretch of road. The roadway is flat with no obstructions. As a matter of fact, when we went out to the Planning Commission meeting, I looked to my left at the top of 75 Highway. I could see all the way down Lower Silver Lake Road, and I could see the piles of sand from Highway 75. That's almost 2 miles away. In stark contrast, you can look at the many road analyses and surveys completed by Bartlett West, Schwab Eaton, Cook Flat, and Strobel, which all indicate severe issues with Valencia Road due to the steep incline and many blind curves, as well as blind driveways, hidden driveways. Add to that over 40 intersecting residential driveways and roadways. Hopefully you can see that these sites are about as far apart from similar as you can get. What's not really noted here, you have the roads back on into each side that feed through Valencia Road. It was in 2005 when Mike Allen, Nathan Rewerts, and I met with Dan Woodward, John Hutton, Mike Engler, and Jason Duncan of Bartlett and West, and we had offered up an alternative site with a willing landowner, Jim Lindstrom, whose property was not in a populated area. Kansas Sand did not seem interested at all. When I specifically asked if they had an interest in meeting with that landowner or if they were in too deep, the response I got was, we're in too deep with this site. That other site just happens to be the site the Builder's Choice chose. So when they complain about the restrictions on the site they have today, they chose to be there. It's not as if there was not another site, there was not another willing landowner. They had the ability to go right here where they're citing competition as their main reason for needing this restriction lifted. If they had gone there, they would have no restrictions. John Hutton and Kansas Sand are asking you to rewrite the CUP and its entire purpose. The CUP did not ever focus truck trip limitation as an annual number, a monthly number, a weekly number. It was always focused as a daily number. There was an attempt by the original Planning Commission and the County Commission to strike a balance between business needs, neighborhood safety, and the good of the affected area in the neighborhood. When you characterize the neighborhood, it's not where the pit is located. It's the entire route that these trucks affect. So to say that because it's agricultural and right near the river, it's just a better use for the land. But when it impacts all of these residences as you go up the road, that's quite a different picture than has been painted. Dan Woodward stood in front of the County Commission and said it was acceptable and they would make that work for his business. Nothing has changed. When he was asked if his daily limit had cost him any business in front of the Planning Commission, he stated, it has not yet. They still have 9,100 truck trips enabled by the 35 truck trips per day. They were originally required to haul the sand to their main facility at Tyler, and that was lifted to give them more flexibility. The restriction to haul directly from the Valencia site is now gone, and they still have 9,100 truck trips per day, but they still have the ability to stockpile the sand. So although they say it only gives them about a 2-week capacity, maybe that's something they need to look at. Where else can they stockpile sand where it's not affected by neighborhood? That might be a better business decision for them to look at something that they can do to fix a problem rather than asking the neighbors to fix it for them. Bettis Asphalt also said they had stated, John Hutton and Dan Woodward stated that Bettis Asphalt had the ability to stockpile about 2 weeks of sand at their site as well. So it looks like they have some other options rather than increasing the daily truck trip limitation. All we're asking is that Dan Woodward be a business and stand by his words. He spoke to our residents in the County Commission, when he agreed to the maximum of 35 truck trips per day. Last year, they did not even take out more than 6,300 truck trips when they have 9,100 available. So they didn't utilize over 31% of the capacity that they had the ability to use. Be a business, figure out how you get it out of there and put it somewhere where you can get to it. Valencia Road is a main artery for the residents of Valencia area. This includes all the homes accessed by Valencia, 4th Street, Glick Road, Docking Road, and 13th Street as they use Valencia to enter and exit the area. There are over 80 homes, which include working families, retired and elderly residents, from young children to our elderly in excess of 90 years old. We have over 50 school-age children and younger when this process began in 2005. My 18-year-old daughter was only 11 years old. She is now 18 and able to drive, but she is scared to death to drive her car on Valencia Road. I have a 14-year-old daughter who just got her learning permit. Scary in and of itself, but I am scared to death to have her drive on Valencia Road with these sand trucks. I don't even want to think about my 3 younger daughters. An experienced driving coupled with huge semi-trucks is a dangerous combination. On Tuesday, September 1st, I was in my driveway waiting on my youngest daughter to get off the preschool bus. I saw the bus approaching with Ron Pauly, the bus driver for the Rossville district. He did as normal and extended the stop sign and drew to a stop, but on that day, a sand truck just blew right through the extended stop sign. Fortunately, our house is on the east side of the road, so my daughter exited without having to cross the road. If we had lived on the other side, there would have been no chance for my preschool daughter against a sand truck driving down the road. I have a letter from Ron Pauly, who was the bus driver, who still is our bus driver, which tells of the incident, and I will read it for you. My name is Ron Pauly. I am a school bus driver. Part of my usual route is picking up and dropping off kids on Valencia Road. I was assigned this route in 2008 when the previous driver, Pam Burley, had requested to be reassigned a different route. This part of my route along Valencia Road is a very dangerous stretch of road with many sharp curves and limited visibility. This is an even greater concern for me because in driving my bus, you must be stopped to pick up and drop off many young children along the route. On Tuesday, September 1st, 2009, I was driving this route when I pulled up to the Bittner stop to drop Alexis off from preschool. My bus stopped with stop sign out when a sand truck went right through disregarding the sign. Luckily, my bus was on the east side of the road headed north and the Bittner home was on the east side of the road. Thank God Alexis was not crossing the road or this could have ended in injury or death. This part of Valencia is more straight with better visibility and still the truck did not stop. Luckily, this is not another child stop on the west side of the road along the curves. This is a very dangerous stretch of road from interstate to the railroad tracks. Any honest driver would agree. These large trucks with heavy loads make dropping off kids at their homes a big concern for me every day. I talked to Ron again last evening, and he has requested of the school district that they push to have one of the extended arms placed on his school bus, which will help. But he said this is not an isolated circumstance. He said it's the only one where there's been another witness, somebody out there when it happened. It was at that point that I contacted Mr. Rich Eckert, let him know about the incident. I got the following voicemail, which Angie will hopefully play for us here, and here is it dictated for you. This was the response from Mr. Rich Eckert, who was contacting Kansas Sam, or Mr. Hutton.
Rich Eckert, Shawnee County. I called John Hutton and I got his voicemail. I'm sure I'll get a call back from him because he always follows up on that. But I relayed the facts as you related to him. I told him that I could be sure to track down through Silver Lake and talk to the school bus driver, although I'm not going to do that. But I rather sternly said, I don't want to hear that ever again. I don't ever want to hear about a sand truck driver blowing through a school bus stop sign. Or I'll put it on the agenda. So I expect him to call back and be rather apologetic. And
As Mr. Eckert indicated, Kansas Sand has got their way. This is a case where their truck blew through a stop sign. That's a violation. If there was a cop there, there would have been a ticket issued, but there are no sheriff department officers on Valencia Road. When we call, if they show up 15 minutes later, it's a miracle. They've avoided Valencia Road. They're not there. There will not be any violations cited. If they're there, the truckers know that. They're going to slow down, just like any of us would. We see a cop on the road, we're not going to speed. Mr. Hutton, when asked directly about the school bus incident at the Planning Commission meeting, said, absolutely not aware of that at all. If we were aware of something, something would have been done very quickly. In terms of an actual incident occurring, no. To answer your question, no, not aware of that. When asked about it again, Mr. Hutton stated, if I could cross-examine Mr. Bittner, I would enjoy that opportunity. That's a problem with this process as I stand here today. I'm not aware of the school bus incident. If there's some email they want to conjure up from 5 years ago, I suspect they can do that. I mean, we all laugh about these things. Truthfully, I don't remember the school bus incident. Well, Mr. Hutton, I don't laugh about it. It really hit home that day, and I'm very uneasy every single school day from about 4 to 4:30 until I get a call from my daughters telling me they have made it home safe. I had someone ask me if having the trucks on Valencia Road was as bad as anticipated, and my response to that is every bit as bad and worse. With the constant highway-type semi-truck noise and fear of the sand trucks traveling down our road, it's every bit as bad. This morning before coming to this meeting, I heard a rumbling outside the house, heard the windows start rumbling, and I looked down at my watch. I knew it was 8 o'clock. Trucks rolling by, and our house is over 200 feet back from the road. You hear each one of them go by, you hear the rattling, you see the trucks. It's a constant reminder of this process. To put more truck trips on Valencia Road during the warmer spring and summer months is absolutely crazy, because that is the time when our kids and so many residents are home, entering and exiting our neighborhood more frequently. The summertime months, the kids aren't in school between 8 and 5, they're at home. Parents, if they're taking vacations, if they're home with the kids, they're going in and out of the Valencia neighborhood more often during the summer months, which is right when they want to put more trucks on the road. To even think about a neighbor or a child getting mail with the increased truck trips, or anyone taking a walking to a neighbor's house, is just beyond comprehension. The Planning Commissioners on Monday, July 8th, heard the presentation by Kansas Sand and that of our concerned residents. They agreed that this is a safety issue and that Kansas Sand has made a business decision to move forward with this CUP with the full understanding of the daily limitation. Here are a few of the Planning Commissioners' comments before their vote. Mr. Bort said he thought a balance was struck, at least up to this point, seemed to work. He stated that he was having a hard time going beyond that had already been worked through. Mr. Jacks, when he asked John Hutton when the initial 30 truck trips per day was approved, had they assumed they would be profitable or they wouldn't have moved forward? Mr. Hutton agreed. Mr. Jacks stated they would be more profitable at 35, which they had been given the increase. He stated he didn't know if he could open the floodgates, and further, that there is an obligation by the board and the county to say that they had reached a number that was a reasonable amount. Mr. McPhee stated he had been on the road and acknowledged the really sharp curve and that there's no margin of error for going around it. He said the main comment was it had always been about the daily truck trips and not about an annual limit. Ms. McKenzie stated when they said they could make it work with 35, then make it work. She thought the residents have to make it work with 35. She thought the business could too. The Planning Commission voted to disapprove the amendment with a vote of 5-0. Not a question, not a single abstainer. Everyone voted to disapprove. The Shawnee County Commission believes they struck a balance with a limitation of 35 truck trips per day. As clearly shown by the past CUP language, it was never an annual number and should not be considered anything other than a daily truck trip number for our residents' safety and for some ability to enjoy our lives in our homes. This impacts more than just a couple houses and a couple families. It impacts a huge, active neighborhood. We asked that Kansas Sand live with the business decision of 35 truck trips per day they agreed to in front of the County Commission when the CUP was approved. I ask you, the Shawnee County Commission, to vote to maintain the current CUP daily truck trip limitation with a vote against this amendment. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer any.
Thank you, Mr. Bittner. Are there questions?
No.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angie Bittner. I live at 600 Northwest Valencia with my husband Kevin and our girls. We appreciate you hearing us this morning. We know that you have a lot on your agenda, and we're getting ready to wrap up, me and one other person. So I spoke without a prepared speech at the Planning Commission meeting in response to Mr. Beagle's overview and summary of the CUP and proposed amendment. As you've probably reviewed, nearly the entire presentation by Mr. Beagle was regarding the road repairs and Valencia roadbed condition and how Kansas Sand has voluntarily stepped up to the plate. When asked by the Planning Commission if there was any discussion with this being tied to the neighborhood or an impact on the neighborhood, Mr. Beagle only then acknowledged by saying, well, that was part of the discussion as well. We appreciate, however, the factual and unbiased presentation that he gave to you today, which was much different than the Planning Commission. I'm speaking to you today to verify that safety is our main issue. Yes, we obviously have to pay attention to other issues surrounding the CUP, but there's absolutely nothing more important than the safety of our families and our friends and our neighbors. Mr. Hutton claimed at the Planning Commission meeting that Valencia Road is everybody's favorite subject. And we take offense to this because Valencia Road is our entire life. It's where our whole lives happen. To increase the truck traffic, especially during peak construction times, would be to add more danger during the summer when the most people, especially our children, are home, and when we have more teenage children driving during the day. Mr. Hutton also referenced numerous times what a good neighbor Kansas Sand has proven to be. Yes, they have a track record of fixing the road, which they're obligated to fix. I think I counted 17 invoices that he provided in the agenda attachments about all the checks that they have written. To me, a good neighbor does what they say they will do. As an example, the contract drivers line up on the entrance ramp to I-70 before they enter the neighborhood. They're often already there at 7:20 or 7:30 in the morning and wait to enter exactly at 8 o'clock. To leave for work at 7:30 with a 4 or 5 truck reminder of the sand operation every day is not being a good neighbor. We've had promises of only staging 5 minutes before 8. We've had direction given to drivers to find a new place to stage. It's a simple issue, but we have to keep bothering Mr. Eckert about it. We contacted him in 2008, 2010, January of this year, and then again in July of this year, even after the Planning Commission meeting, when obviously I would be on my best behavior if I was asking for a new amendment. Mr. Eckert said that he had talked with the Highway Patrol, and of course they had no issue with this. Yet when we contacted the Highway Patrol, they said that the shoulder is only for emergency stopping or accidents, and that this activity is not permitted. Yet another example, last month, we witnessed a dump truck full of sand, untarped, hauling on a Saturday, and they claimed it to be topsoil by the landowner used for agricultural purposes. The equipment owned by Kansas Sand is not permitted to be used outside of business hours, including weekends, so I'm not sure how the truck could have been loaded if their equipment hadn't been used. We haven't received any resolution or explanation of this, so we can only share what we have seen. That complaint was made on July 30th of this year. If Mr. Woodward and Kansas Sand wanted a permit with no restrictions, like the Builder's Choice site, they shouldn't have chosen to put their facility in a neighborhood. As Mr. Hutton verified this morning, Kansas Sand has received every request that they've asked for. For the sake of my family and neighbors and those who visit our Valencia area, I ask you to deny this amendment request. Any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lou Allen. I'm a resident out on Valencia Road, 1345 Northwest Valencia Road. I live there with my husband, Michael. This is going to be short because I think we did a really good job of getting the information here before you today. I want to clarify what exactly we're here for in terms of the cases that have been filed, the law that as it exists. It's part of the Shawnee County Planning Commission, their zoning regulations, that the purpose of conditions issued on a CUP is to encourage development, but that it minimizes the effects on the existing conditions of surrounding properties and the community at large. In this case, we really are dealing with one of the golden factors that deal with safety. And I know Mr. Hutton was here before you and said that in 7 years' experience, there's not been any detrimental effect on anybody's property, and I take issue with that. For example, 1 year after the CUP was issued, we came before this same body because one of the wells that is specifically addressed in the CUP at 1622 Northwest Valencia Road had gone dry. That condition provided that Kansas Sand would pay for him to hook up to rural water. I think that at that time, Mr. Guile was only requesting reimbursement of his cost for doing a new well. We came before this body, and this body, if my experience serves me right, I believe Commissioner Bueller was the only one currently on there. You did a motion to make them pay, and there was no second. That illustrates the frustration of the neighborhood in terms of getting some of these conditions enforced. We still have a neighbor whose well went dry under the CUP, and they didn't get the effect or the condition that was allegedly imposed to take care of that specific unit. In this case, what we're dealing with in the golden factors is, unfortunately, Mr. Hutton jumped over this, was really number 6. That was the one that dealt with safety. In this case, the county commission, in their first decision, gave us 3 conditions: that we'll obey traffic laws. Well, we all have to obey traffic laws. The second condition was 8 to 5, and the third condition was 30 truck trips. They took that up to 35. And you had asked a really good question, Commissioner Archer, on how many minutes in between each of these. When we did the analysis, according to my records, between the 30 truck trips, that was every 9 minutes. When it went to 35, that's every 7 minutes. So if we look at what Mr. Cook had maybe suggested at 40 or 45, you're going down to every 5 to 3 minutes on this road. And it was always proposed to us that there would be sufficient times in between these trucks so as to accommodate the, quote, light traffic that was on there. In this case, I don't believe it comes, well, I believe it comes down to the question of whether the increase to the public benefit, and that's all of Shawnee County, not Kansas Sand, but whether the increase to the public benefit of all Shawnee County residents outweighs the ramifications of lifting even one of the 3 restrictions that were put on this for the safety of the neighbors. And I just don't think it does. I don't think they've shown it with the numbers. There's never been a time where they've come up to the maximum numbers. And granted, they only showed us the last 6 months. I just don't believe that they have the numbers there to justify this. When you look at what the golden factors require, what your own zoning regulations require, and that is to look at the public benefit. And I don't think that Mr. Hutton or Kansas Sand has come to you before today or even at the Planning Commission with those numbers to justify reducing that restriction. If there is something that goes wrong, it's the truck driver that's liable, not Kansas Sand, because those are independent contractors. And if there is an accident and there is an increase in the introduction of semi-truck traffic to car traffic, then I think there would be some responsibility on the commission for reducing that restriction. Be happy to answer any questions?
I have none. Thank you, Lou. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Archer.
Yes, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Cook asked that we defer this for 3 weeks, and I respect that. I'm glad we didn't, because I didn't want the neighbors to have to wait 3 more weeks to have this resolved. And having said that, based on the testimony and the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission, I want to make a motion that we disapprove this resolution.
Madam Chairman, might I provide some rebuttal?
Hold on just a second, please.
Thank you.
Finish, Commissioner Archer.
Yeah,
Do you have anything
that was
else
my
to say?
motion, was to disapprove the resolution.
Madam Chair, I have a question for our legal counsel before taking action on the motion.
Actually, I'm going to second the motion, but we will have discussion at this point. And you have a question?
I have a question for our legal counsel. Mr. Eckert, given the concerns of the neighbors that overall they appear to have safety concerns regarding the trucks and their transportation, observance of safety for the children in the neighborhood, if the commission takes no action, that safety concern still remains.
They're concerned, yes.
Does the commission have the ability to alter or amend the present CUP, given that this has now gone to the planning commission?
What's squarely in front of you is a request concerning the truck trips. And I think that's the only thing that's properly in front of you from a jurisdictional standpoint. If you wanted to alter the permit one way or the other beyond what's at issue today, you'd have to send that back to the planning commission.
So if we were to want to approve the request by Kansas Sand and Gravel, that would then go back to the planning commission with direction?
Oh, no, no. You're the final decision maker on what's properly in front of you today. This is it right here, unless there's appeal to court.
So if we wanted to change the hours, instead of 8 to 5, to 10 to 2, that would have to go to the planning commission?
Yes, you have the authority to do that, but there's also due process considerations, not only for the citizens who live on the road, but for Kansas Sand. And I know it's kind of odd to think that companies have due process considerations, but they do, because this is actually a property interest that they have. This conditional use permit is actually a piece of property, just not the way we think of it, like a piece of dirt, but it is. So there are due process considerations. So they have to have the same hearing in front of the planning commission as what they initiated.
And if the commission wanted the planning commission to consider allowing an additional amount, upping the number from 35 per day to 55 per day, but only hours during the hours of 10 to 2, that would have to go to the planning commission.
Well, that's a pretty good question, because now we're talking about how we make law and things like that. I know that on the original conditional use permit, that one was wide open. And those hearings lasted multiple days, and what happened is that in order to get to 3 votes, because back then a 3-0 vote was needed, whereas today only a 2-1 vote is needed to do any action. But back then, there was, what would this commissioner allow? What would this commissioner allow? And what would this commissioner allow? And you do that at the table. You don't do that in executive session or anything like that. So that was reached as a compromise to see what could happen to get 3 votes, and that's how you ended up with these conditions. Now, you can generally set new conditions, okay? But here, the request, the proper request is to enlarge the permit, and I think that's what's improperly in front of you, enlarging the permit. If you wanted to decrease the permit, I would feel safer. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I would feel safer if we started that process over at the planning commission.
Or if the hours were changed, that would have to be at the planning commission.
To decrease the permit, I would feel better if it started there. I'm giving you a lawyer answer, but
Lawyer answers usually are maybes.
yes, they are. But I'm telling you what I could properly defend if there was legal action, and that would be to start the process at the planning commission.
Any further questions?
No.
No? Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Mr. Hutton, did you have a comment?
I thought lawyer answers were always, it depends.
They usually follow with a bill.
If you could come to the podium, please.
Madam Chairman, my purpose in rising was just to provide some rebuttal comment to what has been made in opposition to the request.
You can at this time.
Is that appropriate?
Mhm.
Very well. Let's kind of start at the back and move to the front. The Mr. Guile well doesn't really have anything to do with this project, but since Kansas Sand has been charged with doing something improper in that instance, I feel like it's important to bring it up. Mr. Giles' well and the fact that it was not pumping as much water or providing as much water came before this body, and a geologist gave an opinion that the sand pit was not a causative factor in his decreasing water, decreasing of volume of water coming from his well. So this body voted to not make Kansas Sand pay to hook them up to water. So there was due process on that issue, and it was resolved. If this body would have voted that it would be appropriate for us, or for my client, to do something in that regard, it certainly would have, in compliance with the CUP. A truck that was mentioned several Saturdays ago by Mrs. Bittner driving down Valencia Road on a Saturday. That truck was a dump truck. That truck was owned by Dan Daniels, who is the landowner and a farmer. He was engaged in agricultural pursuits, transferring topsoil from one of his farms, which is the project, to another farm. That was explained to Mr. Eckert, and we have not heard anything beyond that. Discussion with regard to Ron Pauley, the school bus driver. My name has come up in that, and I've sort of been assailed with regard to that. That issue, I think, occurred, according to the Bittners, back in 2009. It was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting. I did not remember it at the Planning Commission meeting. I spoke to my client about it after the meeting, and what happened, at least according to our driver, and of course none of these people can be brought in for cross-examination, but what happened was, according to our driver, was that Mr. Pauley, who apparently was the bus driver, did come to a stop, saw that the truck was coming the other way, didn't want to make the truck stop, so waved him through, then put a stop sign out. That was what was indicated to us. I don't know whether it's true. I wasn't there. And I don't know whether what Mr. Bittner is saying is true either. I'm not assailing anybody's character. I just am saying that there are two sides to everyone's story, and that is why cross-examination, at least in the courtroom, is important. So in any event, there has been discussion by the neighborhood about striking a balance, and that my client agreed to the 35 truck trip limit. A couple of things. When we initially started with this project, 30 truck trips was what was indicated in the CUP. We came before this body, asked for 5 more several years afterwards, and don't get me, I don't know whether it was several years, or 1 year, or 3 years, but it was a period of time that we had some experience with the project and knew that we needed a little bit more time, or a few more truck trips. Came before this body and asked for those additional truck trips. This process is not in the form of a contract. This is not a negotiation, at least as far as I see it. This is a body that is maintaining a conditional use permit under Kansas law, under local zoning law, and your body, the county commission, sets what those conditions are, and we abide by them. Now, this was not a situation where we came and we negotiated about exactly how many truck trips were going to work. It might have been asked in a meeting, well, is 35 okay for you guys at this time? I'm sure that either myself or Mr. Woodward indicated, well, yes, we can live with it at this time. But the point is that the conditional use permit, by its very nature, is amenable to being amended. And that's why we have this due process where we come and we ask for an amendment. That doesn't mean we don't intend to live by a past agreement. That doesn't mean that we intend to do something untoward or that we're welching on something. It means that there are conditions that are put in place by the county commission, and we're simply asking to change them, which is our right. Simple as that. If we had only gone to the builder's choice site, none of this would happen. Argument made several times. A couple of things we need to keep in mind. The builder's choice site was indicated to us by our geologist to not be a site that was nearly as large or as mineable as the site that we are in at Valencia Road. There is more overburden on that site. There is not as much sand at that site over the years. So my client made a decision to move forward with the Valencia Road site. It was not because of any, in spite of the neighbors, it was because it was determined that that site that we're at now is a better site, is a better deposit of sand with less overburden over it. Simple as that. Business decision that got made, we're living with it. One thing I think that needs to be brought to mind is that since this project started, there have been 5 new houses that have been built in this area along Valencia Road. And when I say Valencia Road, I also mean the connecting roads that Mr. Reworks brought up. So at least there are some people in this world that do not believe that it is a complete disaster. Mr. Welch came up and mentioned, well, if they double the number of trucks, bad things are going to happen. We have never proposed to double the number of trucks on a daily basis. I thought I tried to explain that in my initial comments. I don't think there's time to do that. I don't think there's need to do that. That's why I mentioned that perhaps a cap might be appropriate. Also, Victory Sand. It is true that they have obtained a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers to dredge on the Kansas River. That has been very recent. That is something that we were denied the opportunity to do 7 years ago by the Army Corps of Engineers, which is what started the process to move forward with this project. Now, I will tell you that Kansas Sand has been assailed for its business decisions today quite thoroughly. I will tell you, for us to rely on the Army Corps of Engineers as our only source for sand and their good graces as it pertains to giving us a permit on the Kansas River, that would be a bad business decision. I don't know how long Victory Sand is going to be able to dredge off the Kansas River. It could be 6 months, it could be 6 years, it could be another 60 days. That is not a very certain source of sand. It is pretty much at the whim of the Army Corps of Engineers, and that is something that we wished to not to have to build into our business plan. Speed limit at the curve. I will draw to everyone's attention that over the past 6.5, 7 years, there have been no accidents. When we had this discussion with the initial conditional use permit, everything was speculation because the project didn't exist. And the speculation was that there would be accidents, there would be many, many bad things were going to happen out here, okay? What my point is that we have experience now. We have 6.5, 7 years of experience driving this road many, many days a year. The wrecks have not occurred. The speeding that has been alleged has at least not been ticketed. That's my point. If it is appropriate to lower the speed limit out here, my client is perfectly amenable to that. They think it's a great idea. The speed limit is what the speed limit is. My point being, if it's appropriate for Shawnee County to run a speed study on the entirety of that road or in the area of that curve, then so be it. If that's certainly within Shawnee County's ability and power to do, and if that results in a lowered speed limit, then obviously that's something that Kansas Sand will have to live with and will not have a problem with it. All right, let's get down to the real base of this issue. Let's get to the bottom. Mr. Block, at the Planning Commission meeting, indicated that Valencia Road, this road right here, I-70 up to its terminus, is a low-volume road. Which means that it has 300 or less traffic trips per day. That road has been thoroughly improved by my client. It is a high-quality, two-lane road here in Shawnee County. So 300, let's just call it 300 truck trip, or not truck trips, but trips. That's vehicle plus trucks. I don't want this commission to feel like that there aren't other vehicles that use the road, because there are, obviously. So you've got this low-volume road that has approximately 300 vehicle trips on it per day. Other places in Shawnee County, again, this is a map that I'm looking at, a traffic count map that is from January, February, March, and April of 2007, which is several years ago. But again, I don't know that the traffic counts in these areas have changed very much or have needed to change very much. You all can make your own decision with regard to that. But I want to give you some examples, because I think it is reasonable for this group to consider this project as it pertains to safety, as it relates to the whole of Shawnee County and all of the other roads on Shawnee County, in Shawnee County. Let's start with Indian Hills Road between 29th Street and 21st Street. Daily traffic count. Again, county road, two-lane, a bunch of houses on either side that have driveways that empty out onto the road. 3,425 trips per day. Let's kind of go up north. Brickyard Road between 35th Street and 39th Street. 1,430 vehicle trips per day. Let's go to Topeka Boulevard, North Topeka Boulevard between 43rd Street and 46th Street. 6,375 vehicle trips per day. Let's look at the southeast. I'll give you 45th Street between Barrington and Croco. 6,450 vehicle trips per day. Now 45th Street's kind of a busy street, I'll give you that, so let's try another one. Let's try one that's maybe not all that well traveled. 61st Street between Barrington and Croco, 1,040 trips per day. Barrington between 53rd and 61st, 1,835 trips per day. My point being is that there, if we use the logic and we use the rationale that the neighbors are providing us today, there are a lot of citizens of Shawnee County that live along the roads that I mentioned here, and many, many others that are in very mortal danger. So let's approach this from a rational standpoint. Let's understand that any group of neighbors similarly situated would be against this project because of its very nature. Let's understand that emotion is driving what's going on right now. Let's understand that our society has made a decision somewhere, somehow, that it needs natural resources to carry on our way of civilization. Whether that's sand, whether it's rock, whether it's oil, whether it's natural gas, you name it. Point is, it ain't always easy to get that stuff out into the market. And there will always be someone against it. And so when governing bodies approach these problems, they need to look at them on the broad scale. They need to look at it in a rational manner and take into account circumstances that exist in other parts of the community as opposed to just what the neighbors want to focus on with a microscope. So I'll leave it with that, and I'll encourage this body to approach this problem or this issue along those lines. Logic and reason, broad community, as opposed to emotion and microscope on Valencia Road. Any other questions?
There are none. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There is a motion by Commissioner Archer to disapprove the request. Commissioner Bueller, second the motion. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. The resolution is disapproved. The request is disapproved. Thank you for attending this morning, and if you could just leave quietly, we still have quite a bit of a meeting to do. Thank you.
Change tape? Need to change tape.
And if you need to change tape,
Yeah.
we will take a 5-minute break for the TV station to change their tape, and we will be back in 11:05.
Oh, yes.
Number on there?
Mine are little, they taste like licorice, but they're super, they work like a charm. I'm not kidding, they really work well.
Thank you.
Some people like the taste of licorice. Just tell them when it's the alcohol comes here and you give them 2 seconds from us.
Well, I had things I was gonna do, but not anymore.
Oh. Sorry, sorry for that response. We have 3. Uh-huh. Yeah,
We can take all the time we want.
sure. Yeah, we can.
It's got a break for lunch.
Special sessions and everything else. Commissioner Archer doesn't eat lunch.
Pardon?
Commissioner Archer doesn't eat lunch.
He doesn't eat lunch? Well,
I don't eat breakfast, but
Listen.
I do eat lunch.
you don't eat breakfast?
No, coffee.
Breakfast is the most important thing. You know what I mean? Did you not know that? Your mother told you this.
Yeah, she did, but you know, I just, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't,
I
just
don't
have a
eat
yolk. You don't eat it?
No.
Oh,
I just have
man.
tea
I just
and
need
coffee.
caffeine. Go from
Yeah.
coffee to Pepsi.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
It's not good for
Are
you.
we ready? Okay, okay. We are back, and Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item C, Register of Deeds. Number 1, consider approval of request to transfer $100,000 from the Register of Deeds Technology Fund to the Land Records Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Becky Neosi, Register of Deeds. I would like to ask you to please accept a transfer of $100,000 from the Register of Deeds Technology Fund to the Land Records Fund. This will not affect the general fund. The Tech Fund is a special fund set up. Basically, it's $2 per page that we accept per document. And that is to specifically be used to acquire equipment, technological services for storing, recording, archiving, retrieving, maintaining, and handling of data recorded or stored in our office. And if that balance exceeds $50,000 and is not needed, the excess could be transferred to the Land Records Fund. And we have a Land Records Committee set up to make recommendations. Answer any questions if you have any.
First, thank you. And I don't have any questions.
Is this at the recommendation of the Land Records Committee?
The Land Records Committee did request funds, yes, not a specific amount.
But this is kind of at your discretion, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That would bring the balance of the Land Records Fund to $217,275.
If the money's not used, does it roll over to the general revenue?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Is that correct?
And Becky, you do serve on the Land Records Committee
I
as
do.
well.
I'm the chair of the Land Records
Okay.
Committee.
Okay. Okay. All right. Other questions? I'll move to accept.
I'll second.
There's a second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Item D, Emergency Management. Number 1, consider approval of request for out-of-state travel for 2 staff members to attend training at no cost to the county.
Good morning, Commissioner. We had the opportunity to send 2 more members of staff off to training in another location, and there is absolutely 0 cost to us other than their time away from their desk. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any questions? Commissioner Archer?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is fully paid for, and I think it was, what, New Mexico Tech?
I believe this one is at New Mexico Tech.
And how do they pay for our airline and hotel accommodations and per diem? How do they pay for
Either
that?
the employee pays it up front or we pay it and get reimbursed.
But how do they pay it, I guess is the question I had.
Oh, they send a check,
Okay.
so
but-
we actually get a
But
check.
their fund, is this a federal grant?
Yes, it is all
Okay,
federal
okay.
funds. Yes,
Okay.
it's not even state funds, it's federal funds.
Okay, that was the question.
Yeah.
How many hours of training do you and your staff attend every year?
some of them 150, 200 hours.
How many hours of training does you and your staff provide to other organizations during the year?
Counting CERT classes, for example, we have a CERT class that starts this Friday and Saturday, and the following Friday and Saturday. That's 22 hours. We do that 4 times a year. Plus, we do training every Monday after the orientation. We do the 7 signs of terrorism. We're teaching incident command classes on a continual request of other state and county offices and in Shawnee County, along with other instructors coming in here and helping us with classes.
Madam Chair, I'd be very interested to know, to get specifics on how much time emergency management staff goes into training and provides training during the year. I would appreciate that information as soon as possible. Thank you.
Is there a motion on this
I'll
request? Do you have a question?
I'll move to approve, but Commissioner Archer, is the concern that our staff is spending too far or too much time away, or that we're putting on too much as to the request?
The concern is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Would like that information.
Absolutely, I think that'd be good.
But I would move to approve the request.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. You know, if there's cost associated with it, my guess is we are spending little or no cost on training as far as providing it. So those dollars as well.
Okay.
You know, I know you do a good deal of training. That's the nature of the
We'll put together a
your
report,
department,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Item E, Health Agency, number 1, consider authorization and execution of Contract C 379-2013 with Nurse Family Partnership to provide outreach, prevention, and early intervention services to low-income, first-time mothers and families in Shawnee County at a cost of $25,391 in setup fees to be funded by the Early Childhood Block Grant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Diane Creek, Shawnee County Health Agency. This is the final step in allowing us to be an official Nurse Family Partnership program. And there's no cost to the county. It's grant funded.
And this has been before us in a number of different
Yes.
requests to.
Yeah, travel requests, et
Right.
cetera, yes.
Right, okay.
Motion to approve.
So motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Item E2, consider authorization and execution of Contract C 380-2013 with Heartland Alarms, Inc. for security and fire monitoring of the building and air conditioning units and to provide a yearly testing for the fire and security alarm devices at the Community Health Center facility located at 2025 Southeast Kansas Avenue at a cost of for 2013 and 2014 of $400 for central station monitoring of the fire and security alarm systems and a cost of $384 for testing of the fire and security alarm devices.
Good morning, Commissioners. Alice Weingartner, Shawnee County Health Agency. As noted in this request, this is a renewal contract with Heartland Alarms, specifically for the California clinic location. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Archer and second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item F, Public Works, Solid Waste, number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2013-110, establishing a maximum speed limit of 45 miles per hour on Southeast 45th Street from Southeast McMahon Court to DuPont Road and 40 mile per hour from DuPont Road to Anno Drive.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block with Public Works and Solid Waste. This is a Public Works issue. This issue is regarding the speed limit along 45th Street, as mentioned in the memo from McMahon Court to Shawnee Heights Road. McMahon Court is about 3/4 of a mile west of Shawnee Heights Road, and DuPont Road is about 1/2 mile from Shawnee Heights Road, and Anno Drive is about 1/4 mile west of Shawnee Heights Road. Currently, the speed limit for that entire section is 30 miles per hour.
We've gone out and done a speed study for that section, and determined that the 85th percentile speed for that section is about 45 miles per hour. Having driven it, I believe 45 miles per hour is an appropriate speed for that section. However, as we get for at least for the westernmost quarter mile of that section, so from McMahon to DuPont. However, as we get from DuPont and going to the next quarter of a mile, there's some rolling hills, some driveways. Even though the speed, the 85th percentile speed shows 45, when you do speed studies, you're allowed to interject some engineering judgment into that. I believe to help transition from a 45 down to a 30 mile per hour, where 30 mile per hour would still remain from Anno to Shawnee Heights Road. I would like to transition from 45 to 40, then to 30. So that is why the request is to have a 45 mile per hour speed limit from McMahon to DuPont, and down to 40 from DuPont to Anno, and then from Anno to Shawnee Heights would remain at 30 miles per hour. If there's any questions regarding this, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Commissioner Archer, do you have a
I've
question?
heard from quite a few of my constituents about this issue, and I appreciate your looking into it and making this recommendation, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion by Commissioner Archer and second by Commissioner Cook. Discussion? Anyone in the audience wanting to make any comments on this item? All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Tom.
Item G, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 381-2013 with the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library for technical support and computer management services at a cost of $29,102 annually.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Recreation. Before you today is a service agreement with the Topeka Shawnee County Public Library and the county. This agreement allows the county to pay the library for the services. On November 29, 2012, the Commission approved a memo of understanding forming a partnership with our library and Shawnee County, which established 36 computers and 6 printers in 6 of our community centers. This partnership has went up very well, but as part of that agreement, it called for a separate service agreement for the county to be able to pay the library, and that's what this agreement does. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Pat Hartman with the library is here. He's done some usage studies of our computers. If you'd like to ask any of those questions, he would be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Randy.
Madam Chair.
Yes, questions?
Mr. Luby, I'm just curious, the cost of the county is $29,102 annually. And that's not for the equipment, it's for the service.
That is half the salary of a full-time employee that the Shawnee County Library employs.
If we have an information technology department and employees that specialize in information technology, why wouldn't we just use our information technology department instead of paying for this service?
At the time of this agreement, and Pat, I'm hoping here somewhere, but they did not have the capabilities and didn't have the time or the staff to devote to this. So that's the reason we came up with an agreement with the library. Hope I said that.
And I do have a couple of points that will help with that thinking. A lot of what happens with the computers that would be managed by the library staff are compliance with the library's internet filters, the technology that they use to monitor the computers, and a variety of things that we did not have access into. So it becomes a matter of it's better for them to maintain the computer system and the pieces and parts that are in place on there to make sure that they're used and tracked and monitored with the same technology that the library uses for their other elements. And it becomes very difficult to mix those two together. Shawnee County's got a completely different strategy that we use to monitor and secure our computers. The library has a whole other set of systems. So it's very difficult to mix those two together. and have Shawnee County employees trying to manage and maintain computers that the county, or that the library is putting together and managing. So we're trying to maintain a separation of management strategies for those computers. That was one of the main reasons that we went along those lines.
Further questions?
Mr. Alexander, given that, wouldn't it have made more sense for us to buy the equipment and let them service it? And then, instead of having a split between the two?
The purchase of the PCs themselves?
Yes.
About $45,000.
Yeah, I think that was the amount that was involved.
That they bought all the computers and printers that are for a cost of $45,000. Then we agreed upon splitting a staff person to service those.
But we're now obligating the county to $30,000 a year till the end of time.
The contract. How long is the contract in force? The main contract with the library? I don't think we have that before us.
5 years, I believe.
5 years?
So $150,000
Correct.
versus the cost of it for $45,000.
The cost of the computer hardware itself,
Right.
If we purchase that for, in place of doing the technician and support.
If we had. I mean, I think the computers have already been bought and they've already been installed, at least in Central Park.
Yes.
They've been in all 6 communities there.
Yeah. So, that's all the questions I have.
Actually, I don't think we have a choice, do we? Seems like that was part of the deal that we agreed to. And hindsight's always really good. The only thing I would ask is, do we have a way to monitor, you know, if this person it works in the library and reports through that chain, do we have a way to monitor to make sure we get our 50% of the time of that IT specialist?
The library does. You want to come on up to that?
Well, right now, I'm Thad Hartman, I work at the public library. Right now, I don't believe they're keeping strict count of the hours simply because they have a set schedule that they use to go and visit each of the computers once a week at least. But then they're also dealing with information on the phone and going and solving problems as need be. So there is partly a set schedule, and then partly they're solving problems as they arise. Maybe you can correct me also, but one mention of when there were computer labs before these were installed, and the county, I believe, was contracting out for that IT of those computers, and so
And that
it's
was
not
at
all new.
That was at $10,000 a year. We were having a separate contract with somebody just to keep the upkeep of these programs or computers, so.
But we've now,
Other questions?
we've now tripled the cost. I mean, if it was $10,000 before, it's now $30,000.
But we formed a partnership with the Shawnee County Library that I think is betterment for the whole community. We're going to be sharing different programs. We have their information's going into our catalog. We're sharing different websites. We're sharing all this that I think is a valuable partnership for the whole Shawnee County community.
And quite frankly, when we visited the community centers initially to see the setups, I think every community center had at least two computers that were not working at the time, and I don't think that the IT was probably sufficient for what was needed.
Any breakdown of the 36 computers, any replacements, anything like that is the responsibility of the library, correct?
Correct.
Printers, anything?
There's the
Any
hours.
updates?
I don't know if you're interested in the hours of usage that we've had. We've had close to 10 computer sessions, 10,000 computer sessions, and a total of almost 4,000 hours have been spent on these computer labs. So the public is out there. They are using our computer labs, and that was the whole purpose of this, is getting people into the community centers, as well as giving them the capability of pulling up internet, paying bills, doing whatever they can do that may not have that capability otherwise.
Well, we keep track of like downtime and that sort of thing. I mean, technology is wonderful as long as it's working. I mean, so this person is going to be assigned the task of making sure that we have everything that's working well. So will we have some track of that as far as?
We can certainly do that, yes.
I think that might be helpful for the future, yeah. Okay. Further questions? Move approval of the request. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item G2, consider approval of request to solicit bids for grass seed and fertilizer at an estimated cost of $88,000.
Good morning, Commissioner. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. We're asking for permission to solicit bids for the entire department's grass seed and fertilizer needs. We also have visited with Public Works, and these bid specs will cover their needs as well. If you have any detailed questions, Carrie Golden, the person responsible for putting all these specs together, is here to answer any detailed questions you have.
Thank you, John.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook and second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item G3, the added item, consider authorization and execution of contract C378-2013 with Weiser Tent Services, Inc. for use of a tent at the annual Smoke on the Water barbecue event to be held on October 11th and 12th, 2013, at a cost of $384.
Commissioners, John Knight, Parks and Recreation. This is a tent rental that we're trying to arrange the erection of a tent for a big event that we have out at the Lake Shawnee. It's the Smoke on the Water barbecue. The way this has come about is at one time we used to use shelter houses out there, and it's always been kind of our responsibility to have a setup for the judges that is separated from the public. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thanks, John. Question?
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Is there other costs that the county is incurring in this event?
Yeah, staff.
And that's being paid completely by the county, it's not part of the foundation?
Correct.
Why would the county invest the money in staff and in the tent and then not get any of the money? It all goes into the foundation.
The foundation, well, the foundation, in my opinion, is county. Its sole purpose is to benefit Shawnee County Parks and Rec. It can't spend any money on anything else. So it is a benefit to the county.
Okay. Ms. Greiner?
Excuse me, I'd just like to clarify, you said it is part of the county. Well, the foundation is a separate organization. The county, the commissioners do not control the foundation. I just,
But the purpose, the purpose of the foundation is solely for the benefit of county property, which the county commission does control.
The county has no control over how the foundation spends its money or where it allocates the funds.
No, the county commission does not know.
Right.
No.
That's the benefit of having a foundation.
Commissioners, I would...
Well, I tried to say that in a nice way, but that's the benefit of having a foundation.
It helps the ability for...
You wouldn't have people volunteer
Yeah.
to work these events if all of the money went back into general fund, all of those type of things. That's the driving force behind having a foundation.
Commissioners, it's my opinion that if the foundation wants to hold this event, they can incur the cost. Motion to deny.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Cook. Is there a second?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to deny dies for lack of a second. There is a motion to approve. I'll second that motion. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion
Nay.
carries 2-1. Commissioner Cook dissenting.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item H, Commission Number 1, reflect the reappointment of Brian Austin to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for a 2-year term expiring on July 20th, 2015 by Commissioner Cook.
It's your
That's my
appointment.
appointment. And
Any comments?
He has served on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for the last term, and since its inception, and he has a lot of interest in the trails and promotion of the trails and activities, and he's well-versed in the advisory board, and so I feel confident in his skills.
All right. It's so noted, and we appreciate his time to
Yes,
serve.
sure do.
Next item, please.
Item H2, consider appointing a voting delegate along with the first and second alternate for the 38th Annual KAC Conference to be held October 29th through the 31st, 2013.
This is our conference being held in October. Normally, it is the chair that is the first, and then the vice chair, the second alternate, and is that all we need? First and second alternate, correct? So,
Motion to approve first and
Okay.
second.
all right.
Well-
Yeah, but you want
I think this is a trip to Wichita, and we only need a voting delegate to really attend, I think. And they say if you have first and second alternate, to actually be effective, you have to attend the conference. I'd say we just appoint the chair to attend the KAC annual convention. That would be a substitute motion, I guess.
well, and I don't know, were you intending to?
I don't know if
Go
my
to
schedule was
Wichita
going
or
to
not.
permit, but if I chose to go, it would be at my own attendance, at my own cost, not incurring any cost to the county. And that much, if Commissioner Archer wishes to attend, he could do so at his own expense.
I'm an accountant.
Okay.
But
so-
I do take that, and if I do decide to attend, I will pay my own way. Thank you, Kevin, I appreciate that.
No problem, Commissioner.
So there is a motion to appoint the chair as the first, I guess, as the, yeah, and no second alternate then at all. Kansas Association of Counties Conference is often attended by department heads as well, county clerk. I guess I don't want to be, I'm driving and I don't make it there. Something happens, I don't know. I mean, I think we need to at least have an alternate.
I think County Counselor, your
Do you
association.
attend-
just there one day for the CLE.
Yeah. County clerk, will you be there?
I hadn't even thought about it, but I can be.
I will assure you, no one can tell her how to vote.
Or would want to.
That's what you want, independent thinking.
That's right.
I would not.
You would not?
I would not vote any way that you wouldn't want me to go.
It's been a long morning, you
Yeah.
can tell. You can
It's
just
silly
tell.
season down here.
Well, we'll leave it at that for the chair. So that's your amended motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. And if anybody else happens to be going and wants to be the alternate, then let me know.
Good.
All right. Go ahead.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
as a Shawnee County Commissioner, I believe that it's our inherent duty to set the priorities for the county. And for too long, I think that the county has relied on tax reserves to cover our expenses. And that's left us in a precarious position. Much as the captain of a mighty ship is able to steer clear of disaster, now is our opportunity to change the course for Shawnee County. And after much deliberation, I have prepared a proposed budget for Shawnee County for the commissioners for your review, consideration. I know that we'll have ongoing discussions, but I wanted to make this part of the record and also for public review of recommendations that I might have. The suggestions were not done lightly, nor do I fail to recognize the consequences of the decisions. As you will review, the largest suggestions are to the Park and Recreation Department, and I think we're faced with meeting the essential needs of our county and balancing that with non-essential functions. And I fully trust that John Knight would be able to take the suggestions and make appropriate recommendations for implementation. I would also note that there is substantial increases to the sheriff, and the recommendations are to address salary disproportions among like-sized law enforcement agencies within our state. The law enforcement, of course, would need to be reviewed by their labor boards and their representatives for input and consideration prior to final adoption. I'm also asking a recommendation of increasing our cash reserve fund from $2 million to $6 million for this year. And so I would distribute that to the Madam Clerk as well as the other two commissioners, as well as anybody else from the public that would wish to have a copy.
Anyone else for administrative communications?
Yes, H.R. Cook, General Manager, Kansas Expo Center. I just, since we're talking about pits today, I thought I would mention that the Kansas Expo Center, Shawnee County, along with Visit Topeka, has been awarded the 2015 World Horseshoe Pitching Championships. They'll take place July 13th through the 25th. It's a 2-week event. We're expecting 1,500 people coming to our city, spending the night in hotels with an estimated economic impact of over $2 million. So we beat out Charleston, West Virginia for this bid, and we look forward to this event coming up in 2015.
Thank you. Anyone else under administrative communications? Next item, please.
Executive session?
We do have a need for an executive session for non-elected personnel and for matters relating to security measures of a public body and buildings, not to exceed.
And collective union negotiations.
That should be added, not to exceed 25 minutes. That is the motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor of the motion say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. I'm going to anticipate that we will be in executive session. We will come back out, take a lunch break, and then resume with budget discussions at 1 o'clock this afternoon. But we will be back here in 25 minutes to adjourn.
At some point this afternoon, I'll probably need to step out.
Did you anticipate? Oh, you can't end it by yourself.
I can't. I need some assistance.
Just one more.
Aren't you hungry?
I
had to eat some of Jane's licorice.
Did you really? I have a stash too. I do. I have a stash of licorice.
They
Yes.
all went to eat lunch. They said, Commissioner Bueller said 1 o'clock, she means 1 o'clock. Okay. I just need 2 of you.
Okay, we are back in session, no action required, and we are adjourned. We'll be back at 1 o'clock for budget discussion.
Okay. I just want to let you know.
We had 2, we adjourned.